Hello everyone, good morning. Thank you for coming to our presentation. Our team is made of Dan, Steven, and me, Rick. Our topic is Ikigai. So what is Ikigai? At its core, Ikigai is a holistic approach to understanding one's reason for living, both within the world and within themselves. It was first brought into the Western popular consciousness by Meiko Kami. Ikigai can be roughly translated as the value of living. This value is derived from a balanced intersection of four categories, which are things that you love, things that you're good at, things that you can get paid for, and things that the world needs. Although Ikigai, at the first glance, might appear to be an abstract concept, its practice has been recorded as having quantifiable effects. These effects are especially noticeable in Okinawa, which is in Japan. Numerous studies have found that Ikigai can increase life expectancy, reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, inspire healthier eating, and bolster positive mental health in the long term. Ikigai comes from within. There is no playbook, no map, and no answer to where one can find it definitively. Here is Dan giving us a preview of his paper.
Hey everybody, so my name is Dan. As you probably guessed by now, I'll be talking about Ikigai, or the Japanese version of a sense of purpose in someone's life. And as someone who's trying to be a doctor someday, my research was kind of focused on the health benefits of this idea. And so through my research, I found that Ikigai has both physical and mental health benefits. And so some of the physical health benefits are along the lines of lower cardiovascular disease, lower rates of stroke, and overall longer life expectancy compared to those who do not incorporate Ikigai into their life. And so through this research, the researchers theorized that individuals who had this sense of purpose in their life had a more forward approach to their problems. And so when there was a slight change in their health or a new symptom, they were more likely to go to the doctor to have something checked out compared to those who did not have this approach to their life. And so they're more likely to see or catch something earlier compared to those who did not practice Ikigai. And so that was the main theory behind the physical health. But as for the mental health aspect, they also found that people who practiced Ikigai had fewer suicidal ideations and suicide attempts compared to those who did not, and overall depression was much, much lower in these individuals compared to the general public. And so same kind of idea, when they had a sense of purpose, they were more proactive about their health and more likely to act on something rather than letting it grow into a larger problem. So through my research, the biggest strength I found in Ikigai was, like I said, it makes people healthier, which obviously means less stress in people's life and most often means that they're more happy. The biggest weakness I identified, which I'll talk about throughout the most of this presentation, is that the four categories that make up Ikigai, the what you love, what you're good at, what you get paid to do, and what the world needs, is great for Japanese culture, but not applicable to any Western culture. And I actually found a study that tried to incorporate Ikigai into the United Kingdom, and they did report slightly higher levels of happiness, but it was a magnitude lower than the levels they were reporting in Japan. And I think it was because of these categories not being able to apply to a Western culture. So I decided to offer a revision to these four categories so that they might be applicable to Western culture, specifically the United States, just because obviously that's where we are right now. So I'll go category by category and kind of explain my differences. So for the first category, the what you love category, I think it is very important that we keep this the same in Western culture, but there has to be a societal discussion around this to make some changes as to what we consider loving somebody. And so, for example, I think that Americans struggle to say that they love anyone who's outside of their family, and they only consider family to be those that they're blood related to or married to. And so I think it's important that we adapt, as many other cultures have around the world, to say that people that are close friends or coworkers that you see all the time and you really enjoy, those are people that we can say that we love. And so I think that's important we keep that one the same, but we'd have to change some ideas within American culture. For the what you are good at category, I think it would be best to delete it entirely, because I think, as we all know, someone can be good at something and still hate it. And so um, the societal pressure to keep doing something that you're good at can make someone really fall out of love with that. And I think there is a strong push in American culture to have your skills be utilized whether you enjoy it or not. So I think it would be best to delete that category entirely. Then for the what you get paid for category, I think we need to revise this, say, what do you do to fund your happiness? Because um, in Western culture, specifically in the United States, there is a very heavy focus on making as much money as humanly possible. And we learned that throughout this course, that money does not make you happy. And so really a career should be something you enjoy doing, but more importantly, it should fund the things that you enjoy doing. So I think that's a big difference between Japanese culture and Western culture. And then finally, for what the world needs category, this is a tough one to place, but I think we should keep it the same, and we'd have to have another discussion about what the American dream actually means, because it's a very selfish and focused on one person rather than the whole community type of idea. And so the what the world needs category is just about changing the narrative around the American dream and making it more of a pursuit to make the community and the country as a whole better rather than just yourself. And so that's something I think Americans struggle with, and it's a main reason why Ikigai isn't a big part of our culture already. So, in summary, Ikigai can be very beneficial to make us healthier and happier. There's a lot of studies to prove this, but the categories don't make it very applicable to Western culture. And so, through my paper and my research, I offered some revisions that I think would help all of us put it into a Western culture and make it applicable to our lives.
Thank you, Dan. Next up is Stephen.
Ikigai is not the only lifestyle concept that has been used to invoke deeper senses of happiness and meaning. Many cultures all across the world have developed concepts that reach for those same goals. This research paper compares and contrasts Danish Hygge and Hawaiian Ho'oponopono with Japanese Ikigai. Whereas Ikigai is a holistic and purpose-based approach that requires personal reflection, introspection, and often comprehensive changes of lifestyle and vocation, Hygge is concerned foremost with one's physical surroundings. Conceptually, Hygge can be seen as closer to Chinese feng shui than to Japanese Ikigai. But in practice, Hygge and Ikigai strive to attain the same things: happiness and a demystified reason for living. Ikigai might reveal to someone that their reason for living is to be a musician, and Hygge might reveal to them that they find happiness in wrapping up in a cozy blanket and talking with an old friend. Both practices result in clearer senses of what brings happiness day in and day out, only at differing magnitudes. Neither is independently exclusive. As is the case with similar beliefs throughout Polynesian cultures, Ho'oponopono operates under the notion that one's errors, referred to as hara or hala, anger the deities. As a result of their anger, they bring guilt upon the individual who made the error, which in turn causes illness. Examples of such errors include lying, cheating, stealing, and sexual misconduct. After one brings their error to the attention of their family, they must undergo a ritual to untie them from the error. During the ritual, they ask for forgiveness and understanding from those present and request another chance. The ritual is formally concluded after the forgiven individual is crafted and given a lei, made from fruit gathered from the hala tree. Ho'oponopono differs quite drastically from Haiga and Ikigai. Instead of assisting one in their search for what ought to be, instead it helps them to correct what shouldn't have been. Additionally, Ho'oponopono is one of the only major lifestyle concepts that considers others with the same weight it gives to the self. The practice provides lessons in community conflict resolution, in peacemaking, and in problem solving, and it advocates for a restorative model of justice. In all, Ho'oponopono presents itself as a strong complement to both Haiga and Ikigai. In conclusion, Ikigai, Haiga, and Ho'oponopono have a lot to teach us. Whether their practices are followed exactly or they are liberally interpreted and applied, each lends itself as a stepping stone to happiness and purpose, both among community and within oneself. Why are we may very well lack a definite answer. What is the purpose of living remains difficult to answer too. But what is the reason for living instead opens a door. Instead of asking questions of destiny and congruency, it simply wonders, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Maybe practicing Ikigai, Haiga, and Ho'oponopono will help us get closer to those answers.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up, it's me. For my project, I chose to focus on the works of Viktor Frankl and compare that with the practice of Ikigai. Who was Viktor Frankl? Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychoanalyst who was also a Holocaust survivor. During his internment, Viktor found the time to think about certain things and wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. In that book, Viktor proposes the practice of logotherapy. What is logotherapy? Logotherapy is the practice of finding the will to meaning. It assumes three separate things. The first, that humans have an independent will. The second, that this said will has the capacity to strive for meaning. And finally, meaning is something that exists for a given person. Will is taken to mean, in this context, the agency of the mind. Frankl says that a person's body can be shackled, but the mind lies beyond the physical reach of any oppressor. Therefore, it is the work of the mind to find meaning. So how does the mind find meaning? It is through the practice of de-reflection. De-reflection is deliberately thinking where a person is intentional about choosing to focus their thoughts away from their problems. De-reflection is the practice of focusing towards things that are positive. Ostensibly, if a person is in physical pain, then thinking deliberately is the only way of getting out of that headspace. De-reflection also assumes that it is only the person who knows the entirety of their life. It is true because there is just no way for a person to communicate the entirety of their life in exquisite detail with every feeling attached to every event to another person. Thus, logotherapy is a very personal endeavor. Ikigai is also something similar. If you remember the four concepts or the four categories of Ikigai, one of them was things that we like or things that an individual likes. There is no way that a person is able to communicate in, again, complete emotional accuracy to another person what they like and what they don't. This idea that emotions cannot be communicated through the use of language was first proposed by a philosopher called Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein said that because language is a logical game, and because feelings are always greater than logic, we cannot reduce feelings to logic, or we cannot express feelings in terms of language without essentially cutting out parts or choosing to not communicate certain parts. We have all had those feelings where, or those moments where we have a certain feeling, but we are just at a loss for word. This is what I'm talking about. The search for meaning means that we'll always be at a loss for words. We can point others towards it. We can always mention what that loss of words might feel like for us, but there is no guarantee that it is a universal feeling. So this was like, from my perspective, the similarity between Ikigai and Frankel's logotherapy. The journey, the action of finding meaning across cultures is always a singular and personal journey. Having said this, this is like my paper. I think we'll move towards the conclusion of our topic. All right. So in our conclusion, there are three things I want to mention. First, that the pursuit of happiness is not exclusively a Japanese thing. Ikigai might be Japanese, but every other culture in this world has its own unique method of achieving happiness. Second, the journey to happiness, so to speak, is essentially solitary. Although community is both a prerequisite and an indication of that completion, the journey itself, the act of achieving happiness itself, is a solitary endeavor. So there are people who will be with you before you embark. There will be people at the finish line, but that marathon, so to speak, to find happiness, you got to run by yourself. And the third and the final one is that there are no capital T truths, so to speak. There is no prescribed way. It is not mathematics. It's not a series of steps that you do and you get something. Action in this case, or more importantly, the courage to act, is better than just sitting down and thinking. You don't want to follow like a logical prescribed way, more like figure things out, hit and try until things fall into its place. It's an act of balancing. And this is something that has been mentioned across multiple cultures. That was in the Danish practice, that was in the Hawaiian practice, and that is also in the Japanese practice. So yeah, these are three things that at least we are taking away from our in-depth look at Ikigai. The next slide is our bibliography. And thank you everyone for joining us for our presentation today. Thank you.